Hello and welcome to the Mother Architect Podcast. My name is River, also known as Rachel, and today's guest is Heidi-Rachel, my friend from Tik-Tok, and she is also one of the co-producers of the Podcast of Heaven, which is hosted by Katie Asher, who I had on a couple of weeks ago. Heidi and I became friends just from TikTok. We kind of began to interact because of Katie and because of the telepathy tapes. And much of our relationship has just been talking about autism, the autism community, the nature of reality, and of course, this whole wonderful, miraculous revelation of telepathy and what it means for us as human beings, we as human beings, and our experience of existence. So our conversation is very candid and lighthearted and fun because we're both friends, and so we kind of talk as such. But I wanted to give you a heads up that at the beginning of the episode, I'm a little bit like frazzled, so I seem maybe a little off at the beginning because the day before we had tried to record this and my power went out for an hour, so I couldn't record. All of my equipment was down. And then when we went to record this episode, my beautiful new baby kitten decided that was the time it wanted to start chewing on the cables in the back of my computer interface and like microphone. So I was a little bit frazzled at the beginning of the episode, but then we transitioned into it beautifully. So I hope you enjoy. It's just a super fun, lighthearted, candid conversation. And there's a lot in there that I know people who are either autistic or in the autism community, or people who are wrestling with like faith and exploring their spirituality. They will find a lot of valuable insight and information. And I just hope you enjoy. All right, here we go. Well, welcome, Heidi.
Hi, Rachel. Hi. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And how are you today?
I'm good. It's an interesting, I'm in my luteal phase, but I'm like handling it better today than I normally do. So that's nice.
Good. So we tried to record this episode yesterday. I lost power for an hour and we had to reschedule. So we're rehashing a little bit, but we were talking about how we got to know each other and what do you do? We were talking about how you and your husband, Michael, are now producing the Podcast of Heaven with Katie Asher. And I had asked you to share a little bit of backstory on that. And then we kind of got into like, oh yeah, this is how that happened. Because I kind of forgot some of the details as to like how we got connected, because it just seems like you've been just a little like a presence in my life.
Yes.
But yeah, so how did you get connected with me? How did you get connected with Katie and Houston? And how did you and Michael come to produce the Podcast of Heaven?
Yeah, it is funny. I feel like I feel like you and I are longtime friends, but we're actually we've never even met in person. But I saw your TikToks a while back. I'm somewhat prevalent on TikTok. I wouldn't say like I have like 20,000 followers. I've been doing it for a few years, mostly just my own personal little ramblings. I don't have a niche. I do talk about autism a lot, and I saw your videos on my FYP and was just struck by how confidently you addressed yourself, where you very confidently just proclaimed that you're an autistic savant with telepathic abilities. And I loved how simple you described yourself, and also just I don't know, you just had a very like clear, clean, but still sort of ethereal and pure way of talking about these topics. And I really appreciated that. So I hit follow for sure. And I think you followed me back, and I think you saw my content about the telepathy tapes. I was really going through it when I listened to the telepathy tapes. So that podcast had me on like a whole roller coaster of emotions, because like you, I grew up experiencing things that I could not explain. And I just knew things without having an explanation for knowing them, and gotten in a lot of trouble for that. and have a lot of trauma surrounding that. So even though it was incredible that this information was coming to light, it was also like there was this mix of bittersweetness too, because of stuff that had happened to me before in the past, where I feel like this, you know, historically, this has been like systematically suppressed in violent ways.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
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 So, and then we chatted like internally about the things I was processing, and you asked me to be on your live. And also, I think at the same time, Katie reached out to you and reached out to me, because one of the things that she loves to do is reach out to everyone who's watching the telepathy tape. She goes to the hashtag and looks at all the videos, and she reaches out to them if they want to learn more, if they want to go deeper, to read her book, to learn more about it. I felt very privileged by being able to have direct interaction with her. And we talked about that. I told her I just want to help. Like, how can I help? And I told her what my background was. At first, she thought maybe I could help with the marketing and social media for the telepathy tape. So she connected me with that team. But they already have a firm in Los Angeles, and that, makes sense.
Yeah.
So then she's like, well, I need someone to help me promote the book. I really just started off like cleaning up her website, getting her social media pages like up and running, helping her organize and curate the content she already had. And then it's evolved into this scenario now where my husband and I produce a podcast with her, and it's like the three of us. And I think that helped her get over a hurdle. She's been wanting to do a podcast for a long time. Everyone has been telling her to do it, but she was nervous and just I think it helps her to have like two people to kind of play off of and guide into providing the information. And we also, we speak from the perspective of the listeners, because we're fans. So yeah.
And it's great. If anyone hasn't listened yet to the Podcast of Heaven, every single episode, I learn something new. Katie does her research and her homework, and I love that she doesn't speak too much to things that she are outside of the scope of her knowledge. She speaks to what she knows, and what she does know, she knows very well and articulates very well.
I liked her guest spot on your podcast as well a lot. I did.
It was oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, she's pretty good at like not repeating the same information a lot, or even just like saying the same information in different ways. When I started listening to all her podcast appearances when I was working with her, I was like, oh, wow, I know she mentioned this in the book, but she's sharing other things that weren't in the book now. And like, this is so cool. She's just like a fountain of information. It's great.
Yeah. And one thing that I think is really interesting. So I wanted to say it was great having her on. And I was like so honored that she was willing to come on my little rinky dink podcast. But it really speaks to her heart and how she just wants to share with people their story. And I do think everyone needs to know their story. Reading their book, that confronted me in so many ways with a lot of the spiritual wounds that I have, the church wounds that I have. And then also I had to confront like the whole God thing through the Judeo-Christian lens. Like I had to confront that because I feel like I have been trying to salvage my faith over the last like 5 years, but also trying to figure out a way to make it work with everything else without it being so exclusionary and so harsh, because the gospel, as I learned it, as taught to me within the context of Western evangelical Christianity, it's so harsh and punitive and not what I have the instinct of knowing is true about God. And everything in that book confronted and challenged everything that I thought that I knew. And then there was another dimension that I think you probably relate a little bit to as a woman with autism. I'm autistic, you're autistic. That's part of how we connected. And I was one of those loud talking heads for a long time on the internet of like, it's so hard being just autistic enough to pass in the real world as having to do all these things and not being able to measure up, and also not being able to get access to the resources that I know that I need because I don't look autistic enough. And, just yapping about all of the problems that I have, completely neglecting to even think about the experience of a non-speaker or somebody with apraxia. And reading their story has changed my perspective on autism and what I feel my role is in like drawing attention to it. And I was wondering if you'd speak to either of those things, like coming to know their story, how it intersected with your story, how it intersected with how you see God, how your relationship with, and I say in air quotes, God, because that can mean so many different things to so many different people, how your relationship to God changed, and maybe how your relationship with your autism has changed.
Yeah. Yes. I've I had a similar experience going through the journey of reading her book too. Well, first of all, the book is very autobiographical. The first, most of it is her life story, and it has a lot of child trauma and domestic abuse trauma. And it's very similar, eerily similar to my mother's life. And so that was difficult to read as I'm going through. It's just like reminding me of things that I know my mom went through. And also then that kind of just led to like, oh, you know what? I think my mom shared a little too much with me, a little too young. But then again, it's like, I wouldn't know all the things that I know now if I hadn't experienced that. So, and then that just tied back to the book. It's like, I think I get why she had to share all this, because it just falls in place. It leads to everything that happened. It speaks to how she found her hope in God again, and trusting that God, his will is for us to be healed. It's for us to live in righteousness in his word. So
yeah, I don't think people would understand the extent of like how miraculous what happened is with Houston if they didn't first go through that first half of the book.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the part of my relationship with God that I've sort of rediscovered or came to terms with, is that I've studied and learned a lot of different philosophies and religions, and I'm definitely, like, I won't say I'm an expert on any of it, but I have some experiences, and it's there isn't Christianity, or at least like the teachings of Jesus Christ, and really a lot of the stories of the Bible it's kind of the only, I don't know how to word this, like they at least attempt to confront and grapple with why evil exists. You know what I mean? And I think there's a lot of the Eastern religions and other philosophies, and even like, materialist science and all that stuff, it just doesn't really grapple with that in the same way. And so what I like about her book is she's very clear about like the evil that exists in the world, and that what was meant for evil can be turned to good, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't like fight for justice. And I liked that a lot. I like the idea of God believing in justice and redemption, that forgiveness and compassion is like just one part of the process,
Yeah.
So that's a big part of it. And then once it does get to where Houston is born and goes through all this process of his autism and the other comorbidities surrounding it, I had the same come to terms moment where it's like, wow, I definitely, I'm one of these like speaking, low support needs, autistic people who sort of dominate the conversation online about our experiences. And like, I don't think it diminishes the fact that our experiences are very challenging.
Right.
They're challenging in like these completely different other ways. But I do think that we have the unique position of being able to really understand like just a fraction of what Houston is going through. And then we have the ability to speak and create TikToks and advocate. So we could be using that to advocate for people like him, for people who have even higher support needs than we do. And I think that like it's possible to do both. Like we can actually still also talk about our experience, but advocate for theirs as well.
I have noticed my like TikTok feeds or whatever social media feeds, wherever you scroll and you're given an algorithm, it feels as though whoever the powers are, the algorithmic powers, they want low support needs autistic people to feel like victims and to constantly complain about our struggles, which are very valid. And I wish that there were more room for compassion, because most of the things that I've tried to self-advocate for my entire life, I'm told I'm just being too sensitive. I need to get over it. Or I'm imagining what I'm experiencing, or I just want attention, or I just want to be different, and that's really frustrating because I still have not had access to the kind of support that I need from either society, the government, or my family. And I'm one of the lucky ones still. Like I somehow landed into a job that I can support myself with, and it's like semi-sustainable. I love that you've been kind of, what's the right word? You've been kind of calling out the autism community on TikTok because of, which is kind of funny, because of the rigid thinking, because of, there's kind of a lack of self-awareness, I think, in the way that people speak about their struggles, and also the level of consideration that they're sometimes demanding from people. They're not then giving to the high support needs autism community or the non-speakers. And it seems like siphoning people's energy for like, pay attention to me and hear my needs and hear about how unfair my life is, which again, valid. I get it. But there's a rigidity in not being able to hold the nuance of the conversation, because there is this huge divide in the autism community that I wasn't really aware of. But there's a huge divide in like, some people are like, the whole telepathy thing is made up, and I'm not even going to listen to telepathy tapes because there's clearly some kind of political agenda attached to it, which would be, I've stumbled into this whole conversation about like inoculation injury. And you and I have kind of, I've made TikToks in the past that I've taken down about like my theories or like what my instincts are telling me. But there's so much to the story that I don't think we'll ever know until like full government transparency comes out. If that ever happens, regarding, what even is autism? Because I don't, like, my concept of what autism is completely different than what I thought it was a year ago. But yeah, I was hoping you'd speak to that a little bit. You've mentioned that the autistic community on social media, we really need to work on conflict resolution, which I'm huge on. Our culture really does not value that.
Yeah. And what do you know? TikTok was not, it's funny. I have this weird relationship with my algorithm where if I put a lot of thought into a video and try to address every nuance and every angle and cover the ground, and then also have and also leave people with like tangible steps to walk away with, like that will benefit them or benefit others, or like something useful that they can walk away with, those go kaput. They go nowhere. They don't get huge views. What does is like when I'm a little bit more provocative, a little less regulated, and I stand by what I said, but it's just part of it. And like, you need to, keep scrolling. I have more videos about this. I elaborate, you know what I mean? But it's just part of it. That tends to not even go viral really. But, I think like the video I posted about conflict resolution got like 80,000 views or something.
Nice.
And so it's funny, it's funny how that works. And it's frustrating because a lot of the negative feedback I got from that video was that I wasn't giving like steps or tools on how what would you suggest we get, like how do we get better at conflict resolution. I was like, okay, well, I didn't have room in that video to do that. Like, here's another video, and then that got 300 or 400 views. But I think that the division is it's weird. Like, I think ideological divisions in general are being manufactured, and then it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. We sort of end up just going along with it.
Yeah.
But within the autism community, we have traits that, like, I think autism has traits that are a result of dysregulation, for lack of a better word. I don't feel that word really encompasses it correctly, but there's autistic traits that come from a place of like when we don't meet our needs, when we aren't balanced, when we don't take care of ourselves. And then there's autistic traits that come from something that's like inherent, that we are born with our autism, unique to our autism. Mm-hmm. And those are two separate things. The rigid thinking is a behavior that I think comes from a result of like the trauma and the dysregulation and not being able to take care of ourselves and living in survival mode. That's where the rigid thinking, the black and white thinking, I don't think that's actually inherent to like what we're born with. No. I think that we actually have the ability to like hold multiple worlds and multiple truths. It's like we have this macro view. I think they even call it, I think there's a word for it even with autism, but yeah. Well, it's sort of like monotropic thought. Like we can have hyper focus, but we also see the bigger picture and recognize all the patterns of that focus within.
Yeah, and it really depends on too the flavor of autism, because you have, again, very, very broad spectrum. No two people with autism are exactly the same, but you have, just if I'm going to overgeneralize, people that are the more, what was that word you used? Monotropic thought. I love that. That's like linear, very linear. And then you have the big picture. What's the right word for that? Gestalt, where you can kind of see how all of these parallel truths come together and converge. And I wonder if, like you said, it's not inherent to our nature, but the fact that we live in a society that is hyper compartmentalized, hyper individualized, spins very specific narratives about what existence looks like, what it means to be a person. We end up completely learning how to mask and survive within that ideology. So we become more rigid in our thinking as a means to survive within all of it, because we know these boundaries are safe. And there's a lot about feeling safe, I've noticed, with people who are autistic. For me, that's like the story of my life, is like, I need to feel safe. Everything needs to feel safe. And realizing that ultimately there's whatever illusion of safety I have is just that, an illusion.
Yes. And it's the thing is, you are always safe. So the illusion was that you weren't. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like but the safety thing is key in this, and that's kind of why I made the video. Your online space, I think that these creators, especially the, lower support needs, people like you and me who create all these autism viral videos about their quirks and their stims and all that stuff. They want their platform to be a safe space, and they are very intolerant to any level of like even just curiosity. You know what I'm saying? Like, even just like put like a little gentle pushback, or like asking for more clarification, which is funny because that's quite often one of the traits that we complain about neurotypicals doing with us. You know what I mean? That we get in trouble for asking clarifying questions. And then I quite often find myself getting in trouble for asking clarifying questions with autistic people,
right?
Online specifically. I feel like it's a supercharged level of emotion online rather than in person. When I'm speaking with autistic people in person, we can have these conversations all night long and nobody gets offended by my clarifying questions. But for some reason, when an online space and it has to do with a topic that we feel very like justice and passionate for, that's where there's a problem. So like, I think the first step is to try and be comfortable with, like, when someone's disagreeing with you, you are still safe, you know? Like,
Gosh, just say that again. Say that again.
You are still safe even when someone's disagreeing with you.
Yeah, I
You
needed that
know?
just for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, wow, what a beautiful statement. I think a lot of that elevated energy is the anticipation of being unsafe or being attacked, because so often it's connected to trauma. You know, we as children, we asked so many clarifying questions, and we looked at our world with such big curiosity, kind of understanding at an early age those contradictions that adults readily accept and comply with. And it's our nature to challenge what we see that doesn't make sense. You know, that's, as a child, you see something that is contradictory or hypocritical, and you're not trying to attack an adult, but you're like, well, why is that? And the result is usually trauma, or being punished, or having that disciplined out of you. And so we all come to the table of discussion and conversation anticipating conflict, or anticipating attack, undue attack. What a profound statement to say that. Like, can you say, do you remember exactly how you said that? I think we should hear it one more time.
You are still safe even when someone is disagreeing with you. And it's okay to, what I like to say to my commenters in my videos is that you are safe to be curious, ask questions, and disagree. Like, you are safe to disagree in here.
Yeah.
That's okay.
It's like the nervous system has to relearn it. It's like a completely new way of operating and interacting with people.
Yeah, you make a fair point. If we grew into adulthood without a proper diagnosis, or without the tools or ability to properly treat that diagnosis, we have trauma, obviously. And that has created this level of hypervigilance in us. Our inherent natural talent towards pattern recognition turns into hypervigilance. And I feel like we start policing ourselves online. To find any kind of dog whistle. And I've been like that. Like, I'm speaking from experience here. The call, it comes from within the house, like inside the house. I've done this. I've been the social justice warrior online.
Same.
Yeah. And I'm less interested in the dog whistles now, and more interested in their origins, and like where all this stuff comes from, and getting to the root of that. When RFK made that speech, and like, for me, it felt like my autistic community like blew up for a couple of weeks. Everybody was just making video after video after video, just raging, yelling, screaming. And so much of it was valid. I'm not saying it's not, but like, there's this whole other aspect that we're not even allowed to address or discuss, which is like, why do you think so many high support needs autistics and their caregivers and parents, why do you think that they are why they are being supportive of RFK? Because he's listening to them and being supportive of them. And like, they're quite often not welcomed into this online community, in this online space, and quite often spoke over. You mentioned that we don't include the non-speakers, that often in our discourse, but it's more than that. We also ostracize and quite often act pretty disrespectful to their parents and caregivers.
Mm-hmm.
And these people are the lifeline for these nonverbal autistic. If you care about supporting people with autism, especially people who have the highest support needs, then you need to also support their caregivers and parents.
Right. Yeah. A lot of what I talk about on my TikTok account is taking away narratives, because I've noticed when it comes to our neural pathways, our wiring, how we kind of identify patterns in the world, whether autistic or not. We want to attach something that is familiar and like easily understood, easily digestible through our perspective, our experience. We want to be able to put somebody else in the box of our understanding. And that just is not how human relationships work. people don't fit in boxes. There is no one diagnosis or any one personality type that multiple people can fit into, because we are all unique. We're given a fingerprint that is unique to us. We're given a genetic code that is distinctly unique to the individual. To prove that we're all uniquely different. And I really want to encourage people, anyone listening to this, my TikTok followers, I don't like saying followers, but my TikTok people, how can we grow in just listening without assigning a narrative of like, oh, that person's on that side of the political spectrum. Oh, that person clearly is coming with this ideology. People are not ideologies. They are not their ideologies. And ideologies can change. Guess how? In the nuance of relationships and in listening to understand, not to assign judgment.
Exactly. I love the way you said that. I quite often will have a conversation with someone I disagree with. And if I approach it with curiosity and ask questions and then really genuinely listen to their answers, I end up realizing that the reason they feel that way is perfectly understandable, or there's all this context to it. And then often they can see things from my perspective too. It really kind of requires a certain level of patience and some self-work. I mean, I'm in my 40s now and I'm just figuring this out. So I don't blame anyone for not figuring it out, but it's definitely time, I think, especially with everything that's going on with the government and all these changes and all this upheaval. It's time that we start figuring this out.
Yeah, just sitting on that thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you sipping there?
This is a tea, a local tea maker called Magic Hour.
Oh,
They
cool.
make this beautiful, it's got a bunch of different things in it. I don't know if you can see in the light. It's this beautiful purple tea color. Oh, there we go.
Oh,
it's
nice.
Beautiful purple tea. So it's just an herbal tea. And
when it was first in the camera's view, it looked like a wine glass. So I was like, hey,
oh goodness,
happy hour.
Hey, cheers. I actually don't really drink. I stopped drinking a couple years ago, and I had a drink on my birthday in December. And then when my partner and I went up north to go camping, and then we went to the Redwoods. On the way back down, we stopped near San Francisco to hang out with one of his old friends. And we indulged, and we learned that we are no longer in our 20s, and there will be no more indulging for me. So yeah, I don't really drink anymore, because alcohol kind of leaves me with days of punishment afterwards, with all of the different health things that I deal with. It's not worth it.
Yeah, it's wild how after you take a bit of a good long break from it and then do it again, you're like, oh, this is poison. That's right. I forgot this is poison. I'm poisoning myself.
Right. Yeah. It's a totally different thing than I try to be as straight edge as possible, but from time to time the sleep issues get really bad. So I'll do little sleepy gummies, gardening gummies, as some might say. And then I did for 5 months straight, where on the full moon, every single full moon for 5 months straight, I would do a psilocybin ceremonial tea journey. And that's been a big part of my revelatory / healing process. And then I stopped doing that because it got to a point where the last one, it was just crying the whole time because what I needed to do was just process pain. And I think what I learned from psilocybin is just feel your feelings and be real about how you have to expel that toxic negative energy, the trauma. And that means sometimes crying so hard that you dislocate your jaw, which happened to me.
Wow.
It was experiencing my mother's pain and her mother's pain, and seeing little fragments of their life through their eyes. And that it wrecked me in a way that I'm like, oh, I get why we're asked to honor our father and mother. and our ancestors. Like, there's a reason why we honor them, and the history that they pass down to us, and whether that's trauma or the blessings of the life that they lived, the good life that they lived. We are alive because they gave us life. And like, there's really no other way to see and experience that, I think, unless you're incredibly spiritually intuitive and already connected to that, or if you need a little bit of help prying open the the attic of your mind, which is what I kind of needed. But aside from those things, I don't really partake in anything regularly. So
Yeah.
I'm
You know,
just
it's funny.
herbal tea girly.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. It sounds like we've changed topics, and this doesn't have to do with what we were talking about before, but it really kind of does, because what you're basically describing is that, like, yeah, everyone's lived experience, everyone's life, like, it's perceived through their eyes. My son, every once in a while, will get injured, and he makes this huge deal about it. Just like, he's like, when he gets a cut or like a scrape on his elbow, it's like shocked about it. And I have to sit there and realize, like, oh, he doesn't know the pain that I've felt in my life. He doesn't know that. This is the most pain he's felt ever. So this is like huge for him. This is really bad for him. You know, that's the pain he's experienced. And I think we do need to go into like everything we do in life with a little bit of that understanding. That doesn't mean like we let assholes be assholes. No, we don't let people be abusive to us or disrespectful. But to apply this, to apply this back to the conflict thing, especially in online communities, is that you have to remember all these people have these experiences that you're not really taking into consideration.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And internet interaction is a completely different way to interface. You're not feeling that person's real energy in front of you. You're not making eye contact. You're not dealing with any of the repercussions of being face to face with somebody. You know, everybody's a lot braver on the internet.
Yeah.
But I like to think of it as though every person is me from another point of view. And as much as there's so many different ways to think about the nature of reality. I know you and I mentioned the telepathy tapes brought in, what is his name? Tom Campbell.
Oh, Tom Campbell.
My big toe, something
Yes.
like that. And it's like, basically reality is a simulation. And I can definitely understand why he would come to that conclusion. I think that is for sure an aspect of the nature of reality, but it's not quite the full picture.
Yeah, his theory really it hooked me for a little minute there. I was like, okay, this is like, he actually is making a lot of sense. And I liked how Kai, in her interview with him, kept bringing it back to God. She's like, this all sounds like it actually really does align with the Bible and God, like in spirituality. And he kept saying like, no, like, yeah, he's very much still that.
It's
but
its own thing.
I was like, okay, well then who's the one controlling the simulation? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I've been trying to find a way to put into words like where my latest concept has been landing, because it's always ever evolving as you're growing and understanding. And I think that's a part of the nature of it, is like nobody's ever going to have all of the answers. Where is it in the Bible? It talks about it's the glory of God to hide a matter and the glory of a king to seek it out. It is this unsolvable riddle that is the perfect algorithm that changes for every user based on whatever it is that they're needing to learn about God, whatever it is that they need to learn. And there's this whole thing of like the religions doing their best to create a system or a framework that common folk can understand. And I do think that, just looking, if I'm speaking objectively, everything that I've seen and studied, the story of Christ, Jesus, is as close as you're going to get to understanding it in a simplified format. And even that is not quite so simple, because we like to complicate things as people.
It's like it can be simple and it can be more complex. It can be literal. It can be metaphorical. It all still kind of works. The story of Jesus. I love what I love the most is what Houston said, and I think we put it in episode 3 of our podcast. He said, "You cannot see the Father without the Son."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like, I think about that all the time and apply it to my life. And it's pretty wild how it can fit in so many different ways.
Okay. So I've been trying to make TikToks about this again. The words are not coming out right. But one way I was thinking about it is like, okay, so even Jesus says when he's talking to like the Pharisees, when he's talking to people who are trying to test him, he's like, many will come to me on that day and they'll say, Lord, Lord, did I not like prophesy in your name? Did I not like perform miracles? Like I did all the Jesus stuff. I did religion perfectly. I like followed the commandments. And Jesus saying, no, I don't know you. Go away. I didn't know you. And I was thinking about how he says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. He is the way and the only way to the Father. Because he is the way. Like everybody is on a way. We are on a path. He is the way. He's the path of life. He is the truth. So those who tell the truth know him. He is the life. So those who fight for life know him. And if you think about it, like it's not just that he was a person or an entity or a deity, but he literally is life. So anything that is the love of life or fighting for life itself, which, you know, that can mean so many different things, but I like to think of it as like we're in such a derivative, reductionist form of reality right now, like materialism, the physical world, 3D. It's so dense. It's so manual. It's so slow. It's so painful and sticky. But what is life without artificiality? How does this all stay sustained and contained together? And you can look at like physics. That's why I love science and quantum physics, the electromagnetic fields around the earth and how the relationship of the planets and the sun. And like, no wonder astronomy and astrology has such a big role in spirituality.
Yeah.
So he is all of it. And he holds it all together. So I don't think people have to always get so tripped up on like whether or not you're a Christian, because Christianity is just a made up religion. It's, are you following a way that is in truth and fighting for life? And I don't know if I'm articulating that well, because as I say to like every single human that I talk to, words and articulating the ideas that are in here, it's like the struggle of my lifetime. There's too much, and I still am like developing a lexicon for it.
Yeah, I have the same struggles, and I feel like the lesson I have to learn right now in this season of my life is literally to sit back and observe more, listen more, and probably speak less, and then just be more thoughtful with what I say. So I agree with you. And it's always evolving. It's always evolving. But it's funny you mentioned physics, because one of the first things I thought of when I heard you cannot see the Father without the Son is the double slit experiment. Yeah. Like the particle being a wave or a wave becoming a particle when it's observed. It's like, oh, that's kind of, I get why there's like so many Christian physicists or quantum physicists, because it really does fit in with a lot of the stories of the Bible. It's kind of amazing. But also, I just see how I apply it to my life. Like, speaking of things that we partake, I'm like you as well. I had a mental health / spiritual awakening experience a year ago, and definitely cannabis played a role, and like not improper, but like just not a very careful use of cannabis played a role. And so I have stayed off of it for a very long time. What I do a couple of, like every once in a while, is a hemp based like CBD type derivative. That's just what we can get here in Kentucky. And I do that for, body aches and when I'm in my luteal phase and stuff like that. I also have tried recently this thing called Road Trip mushroom gummies, and they're made with Amanita muscaria. They're not psilocybin.
Oh, interesting. I think you texted me a link about that.
Yes.
How was that?
Really, I just like my intuition, my gut wants to say like I love them, but it's like my head's like thinking, oh, are these my famous last words? And we're gonna find out later that this is all toxic chemicals and poison, and like it wasn't regulated by the FDA, and you know what I mean? And maybe that future me might have to take an L or take a W on that.
What was your experience?
I love them.
Yeah. What is the
Yeah.
experience like physically and like cognitively?
It really might be similar to psilocybin. It's like, so it depends on the dosage. When you just take a couple, your body gets kind of relaxed, but like excited at the same time. There's like a bracing, like, you know, like when you're about to go down a roller coaster, like that feeling a little bit, like you kind of like pant, your heart gets pacey, but it's like in a good way. It's not bad. And then if you take more, like what the dose I've been taking the last couple of times has been 4, and the sun outside becomes like Technicolor. Everything's just shiny and very bright and colorful. But then internally in your brain, it's like you're experiencing just entire other worlds, like in your brain, just in your thoughts. You know what I mean? Like when you were talking about crying so hard because you were seeing the lives of your mother and your grandmother, I experienced that last time I did this. Not so bad that I lost my job, but like I just had this outpouring of like grief and gratitude at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like in my head I was being presented with a choice, and I think it was my voice, it could have been God, it could have been me, but it was like, okay, what would you want? Do you want them to be like, do you want them to just have never existed? Like, or do they exist and you've got these memories now and you move on? And that sounds like, I don't know. That sounds a lot more contrived than how I was actually experiencing it in the time. So when I was having one of these experiences with those gummies, I saw Michael and I realized, oh, I cannot see the Father without the Son. I love Michael, and I know Michael and understand him now as a completely different. He's a different thing because he's a father now.
Mm.
You know what I mean? It's like I don't even understand the level of the love I can have for, like, I could have had for Michael if I hadn't had Ambrose. So I know that that's like, I kind of think of that as like a metaphor for the story of God. It's like without the story of Jesus Christ, we don't even know the depths of like God's love, how far it can go.
Yeah, I think what I've learned in my psilocybin journeys is that everything about life and nature, and when I say nature, I mean like there is this rhythm of existence of like how the plants grow and the cycles of the seasons, and how everything has a life cycle of like the seed in the soil, and then it grows, and then it spreads its seeds, and then it dies, it becomes one with the soil again, you know, like just the circle of life. And we as humans, we tend to forget that we are a part of that. We all are appointed a time to be born, we live our lives, and then we must leave here. And what the psilocybin has taught me is that everything about those cycles of life exist as the perfect metaphor and embodiment of divinity and who God is. And the amount of lessons to be learned in relational experience, in having a person, a partner, a husband, a child, in being a mother, which I think is like the single most greatest thing on the planet. I'm not a mother, but I have always had this thing since I was a child about mothers, that they are is the closest thing to divinity that we will ever know here, because, you know, you are what created life. You are a portal of life and beyond, just like generating. I mean, do people even think about that? Like, you're generating freaking limbs inside of your womb, and organs and eyeballs and fingernails,
Yeah.
beyond the
Yeah.
like the insanity that is growing a human being inside of your body. You're literally a portal for a soul to come through. That trips me out. But
Yeah.
yeah, I
You know what
love. Oh, go ahead.
sorry.
No.
No, it's just, you reminded me, I saw the other day, you probably saw this, is like there were studies that showed that the egg in the womb chooses the sperm that comes to it and eliminates the other sperm. Once it's made the decision, it eliminates all the other sperm, so none of those can come.
Oh,
It
wow.
chooses what sperm. Yeah, it
Yeah,
uses like,
none of those can come.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
None of those can come up to the egg. Like, once it's decided on the sperm it's going to lead it, and it omits a frequency or chemistry to lead that sperm to the egg. I
That's
just thought that was like
wild.
mind blowing. So, and also the sperm in hand, the sperm as well. Like it's a consent. It's an actual consensual act that happens inside. And I was just like, oh my God, like that's Ambrose. Like, I knew my egg knew how to make Ambrose. Like, that's
Yeah.
incredible. That's
There
amazing to me.
This is something that has given me so much hope, because I used to be such a I was in the thick of it like a year ago. I was like very angry at being alive. I was not like actively seeking to hurt myself or anything like that, but it's like I can't get this right. It feels like there's no purpose in my life. I am just, as I've heard other people say, a free range tax slave. Like, I just feel completely trapped in a society that I don't agree with. I don't agree to any of this. I never have. And I've been sold this lie. And I don't know what the point of being here is, because I don't know. I don't want to give my energy to any of this anymore, which kind of sparked that need to really begin seeking, which kind of the snowball effect with my journey and unfolding. And on the other side of a year of, I don't know how else to say this except for God really meeting me in that desperation. On the other side of a year, I am filled with awe and wonder at the nature of existence, at the infinite intelligence that exists in our cells that transcends what we're even like consciously aware of, the intelligence that's taking place. I mean, even hearing Houston's words and his synesthetic experience of the gears of heaven, and like there's so many different things that are at work and at play that we're not consciously aware of. And to me, that's really exciting. And I feel such a sense of joy and relief that I don't have to stress out about having all of the answers, because there's already like, and kind of bringing it back to, so you mentioned at the beginning,
Yeah.
you mentioned how you found me. And at the beginning of my videos, I used to say, like, hi, my name is River, and I'm an autistic savant, a light worker, and a follower of Yeshua. And I stopped saying that because, number one, people in my life were getting so mad at me because they're like, you're not a savant because you've not made anything out of your life. What had happened at that time was I got my autism diagnosis, and then I had some encounters that were like these spiritual encounters, one with like a higher being. That's a whole other thing. And she was like, take an IQ test because you're a lot smarter than you think you are. You just don't have the language yet. And around that time, I saw the video of Jason Paget. I don't know if you know his story. He was like hit punched in the face outside of a karaoke bar. And when he had like a concussion, brain damage, and when
Oh
he
yeah,
awoke,
yeah.
he could see like like hardcore calculus, and he tried to bring it to people, his drawings, to people and they're like, we don't know what to make of this. We don't understand it. And it took him 3 years of taking calculus before he was actually able to communicate to people what he was seeing. And they realized he understood what he was talking about. So there were several things that I experienced and discovered about myself at that time that I felt really boldly I need to speak to my intelligence and my connection to greater cosmic divine intelligence. And the best word that I had for it was autistic savant. And this was prior to learning about the telepathy tapes. And I think after learning about non-speakers, I just have so much more reverence for words and the words that I use. And so I decided not to refer to myself as like autistic savant anymore, even though I have been refreshed in my understanding of my own intelligence, and I've been restored in like a confidence that's rooted in humility. Because I think as Katie puts it, it's not about intelligence, it's about aptitudes. Everyone you know is a genius. And it's just a matter of like, we live in a world that doesn't really cater to any other kind of genius than ones that can create codes to create complex new technologies that serve capitalism. But there are an infinite number of aptitudes and intelligences, and every single person that you meet is a genius. So I wanted to acknowledge that because I haven't talked about that. I had so many people in my like real life circle that were so mad at me about that and accusing me of being in psychosis. And I'm like, number one, I don't know how to communicate to you the things that I do understand and know because you have no concept for it. Because not because you can't understand it, but because you don't know what you don't know. Like, I don't know anything about flying a helicopter. So how would I know if a pilot starts talking to me about helicopter mechanics? Or I wouldn't know what they're talking about. You know, I wouldn't know the first thing about it. I did want to mention that about cosmic intelligence and all of that. But it is very humbling to continue to learn more about our world and how everything works. And like little facts like that of how the egg chooses the sperm, and it's like my mind didn't actively do that. But that, to me, again, that's like you cannot experience the Father or get to the Father except through the Son. And the Son is every part of that cosmic intelligence working in and through us, whether or not we're even tuned into it.
Well, first of all, that sucks that people got mad at you for saying that. I mean, like, I totally understand your decision not to use it anymore, but I still don't, like, if I was someone who knew you, or I don't know, it's just someone who saw those TikToks out of context without having this understanding, I still wouldn't like. I would just wonder what's the thing that is angering people. I feel like it's very fear-based. I think a lot of our actions in our lives are very fear-based. And I know that like our parents make a lot of choices that are fear-based, and that's part of it. That's definitely part of it. But yeah, that sucks. And then I think that just going back to, you know, motherhood and what a miracle it is, and that's absolutely true. But I do want to preface for any listeners who have made a decision not to have children, motherhood can take so many different forms, and motherhood has not made me exempt from not wanting to exist sometimes, you know. I've had those same experiences as you, especially like recently now going through this perimenopause journey that I'm on. I've learned some stuff on TikTok and in articles that it impacts people with autism more severely, and there was firsthand testimony that validated this for me. I really have like not wanted to exist and not wanted anything to exist. I remember coming back from a trip to visit my family in California, and it was a wonderful trip. It was like, it's weird. It was a wonderful trip, but I'm just going through all these emotions and so much grief and the way life has turned out, and having to say goodbye to my sisters again, and again, not knowing if I'm ever going to see them again, because last time I said goodbye to my other sister, she was gone. I never saw her again. And it was just so overwhelming. It was so much. And the plane is about to land, and it's got all this turbulence. And I like was like, it could be over right now. Like, I would be fine with that, God. everything gone, everything. And that's like weird. It's weirdly, what comes after that is weirdly liberating. It's like, I really do not have any fear now, but I'm still making the conscious choice every day to be here and show up, because once you don't have the fear, life could actually be fun. You can actually feel sort of safe to just enjoy yourself. As long, I think, as I know, as like the minute I say that, I feel like I have to have a caveat. As long as it's like you're making choices that are rooted in love and compassion, and you know what I mean. It doesn't mean like all bets are off.
No, I think it's really interesting that you bring up like the need to have the asterisk of that, because that's much of the place I've gotten to with uprooting a lot of trauma, learning a lot in the last year, saying truths about myself out loud, regardless of people's response to it. Like saying, no, like literally on paper, I'm a genius and I need to be able to say that out loud, because my whole life I've been treated as though I'm stupid for coming to the conclusions that are like just completely countercultural. But the happiest place for me to be is like at any moment, if this is the end, like whether that's a car accident or plane crash or, you know, just some weird anomalous health thing, like I'm having fun with this experience and I'm living a happy life, not out of service to myself or because I'm just seeking pure pleasure or enjoyment for my own entertainment. But I'm having fun with this because I realize I don't have to fight so hard against everything. I realize that I am kind of in the flow, in the rhythm of whatever greater cosmic intelligence, you know, God, the great I am, creator. Like I'm living in the flow of that perfected rhythm, and my resistance up until this point hasn't helped at all. So I'm going to flow in those streams, have fun with it, enjoy it. I still have moments of like the existential dread where that existential dread comes in, like, why the suffering? Why this? Why are we seeing this in the world? What can I do to change it? And I think that, and this again, it's not like I feel the need to give an asterisk, like you said. It isn't about ignoring any of that, but by choosing to tune into that, like, let's have fun with this and let's like trust and have faith that this is all going somewhere good. That in itself kind of affects people around you in a way that like works for this magical, mathematically multiplying net positive in the world.
Yes, absolutely. It has ripples, and I'm constantly always existing as the person who is speaking, but also this, like, you know, those Muppets, the rude, like, old men Muppets that sit in the balcony and like make fun of them. I have there's also that person in my head all the time at me. And so it's like, as soon as I say it, I'm like, you sound so toxically positive, but it's true though. You really will start to affect the ones around you, and that has a ripple effect, and that makes a change. That does make change. And I think the fact that things are getting worse is like evidence of the positive change. It's like birthing pains. It's like, I said this in a TikTok comment recently. It's like, you know, you think about those like really long running shows, TV shows, and when the ratings are starting to drop, they jump the shark. They make the most unhinged concepts, like stuff that doesn't even make sense. The characters would never make those choices, and they make like the stupidest choices. They're like embarrassing and weird and crazy, and like that's like what's happening to the world right now, and especially America. We're on like the final season of this just greedy, capitalist, imperialist, patriarchal television show, and it's jumping the shark, and it's going unhinged, and it's crashing out. But I think at the end of that, like, there's gonna be, we'll be able to rewrite a whole new series.
I hope so. And like, yeah, there are big picture things that in our day-to-day actions we can kind of chip away at and contribute to like small net positive things. And so much of what I've learned is that there is no net positive action or mindset or thought or emotion that is too small. There's nothing that's too small, because we don't really understand the energetic domino effects of our actions. We don't understand. Did you ever see that movie Pay It Forward with the little boy in Las Vegas? It's kind of like that. Like we don't really understand how far our good can go. And I really believe we have to keep, and fighting is the wrong word, but we have to keep reaching and holding on to that and continue to operate out of that mindset as opposed to the fear mindset. Because I know you and I kind of struggle with the similar thing of like the autism pattern recognition, and like you're seeing how all of this is connected, and like we have all of the stuff coming out now. It's like, yeah, we've been saying this for years. We've been calling this out for years, and nobody's been listening to us. And it's really easy to become a little bit smug of like, you know, seeing the news headlines and it's like, okay, like I was called a conspiracy theorist for this, but okay. Even just looking at my own ignorance, where I've decided, you know, I'm just going to do the whole hustle culture thing and get my bag and whatever. That didn't work out very well for me. I could not exist within that contradiction. Like,
me either.
Fast fashion, and just like I had to strip my life down because it was making me ill. That contradiction was making me ill. I'm not sure where I was going with that, but
I think it was just what we were saying, where it's like, yes, the positivity, the making conscious choices in love and fun and positive exploration has ripple effects that will absolutely have a positive effect on our community and the greater at large, like world at large, you know, it absolutely does.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe the asterisk is there because we've all experienced people who preach peace and love, or like creators. Maybe I see a lot of it on TikTok who are preaching a very similar message, but it's more about like self fulfillment and service to self. And
Yes.
I just don't want to deal with the hard things going on. But for me, it's more of a different thing of like, no, I choose joy. I choose this path of working for good, laboring for good, because of all of the darkness that I see, because this is the way that I can fight back. This is the way that I can make a difference, because screaming into the void about it on the internet isn't really doing anything other than creating more fear and more division.
Yeah. There's a balance you have to strike, and it's different for everyone, but there's a lot of spiritual new agey people, for lack of a better word, who think that the answer is like a certain level of detachment, or even like literally manifesting, imagining that none of that exists and just imagine your perfect world. And that doesn't work. That's not real. That's not reality. But you can hold on to the joy and the hope and the promise of God's healing love and righteousness and power. Like, you can keep choosing to stay in that every day and make a choice. And when you get out of it, make the choice to go back to it. Like, it's a constant. It really is like wrestling, which is funny because that's like the story of Jacob, one who wrestles with God, is Israel. It's like you do. It's like it could be a dance more than a wrestle, you know.
Oh, the wrestling. Yeah. No, I see it as like a cosmic dance. That was one of the visuals early on that I saw of this like constant energetic dance between forces of light and darkness, and we're kind of caught in the middle here. Whatever this plane of existence is, we're kind of caught in the middle of the dance, and it's like we get to choose, how are we going to tango with these forces? What forces are we going to align ourselves with? And I really, really, really want to align myself with the good forces.
Yeah.
And I've tried to do other detours around that, and unfortunately for past versions of myself, the Bible just has so much in it that aligns with like my understanding of like the energetic makeup of existence. Like, there's just this whole other energetic thing going on that we're not keyed into with our 5 physical senses. Like what Katie says about the 4%, we're only tuned into 4% of what's going on.
Yeah. And I am constantly thinking of that too and keeping that in mind because but it just, that just leads to more questions,
You're
unfortunately,
right.
too. Because that's the thing that I keep going back to is I saw this like TikTok clip of a podcast with that Rainn Wilson guy. And the lady was talking about how a lot of spiritual or agnostic people is like they're at a buffet and they're just taking what they want from the buffet. And she's like, and you can live your life like that. I'm not telling you not to. It's just personally for me, I'm imagining like, what would I be taking from the spirituality buffet if I had the choice and it's all you can eat? Like, I know what I wouldn't be taking. I know that I'd be taking what serves, like, just fits me and my ego, and there isn't like growth there. And I choose to not partake of the buffet. And I kind of like, I just saw that today. So I'm still thinking about what that all means to me, but it's interesting because, I don't know. I'm sort of blanking right now. I'm having a brain fart.
No. I think that's a funny thing about the autistic women on a podcast. Like my brain starts to, in mid conversation, branch out to like 700 other things that completely connect to exactly what you're saying. And I'm like, wait, what's the most relevant that keeps the conversation moving forward in a like way that is digestible for the people listening? Let's quickly and then you realize like the brain kind of short circuits and buffers for a second. So totally with you there. That is a really interesting thing. I think in Western culture, we're really trained to have that buffet mentality, consumer spirituality. And I've definitely, do I want to say definitely? Maybe not. I always approach things as like, I really want to learn as much as I can because I'm trying to get to the bottom of truth. I really want to understand things. And I'm willing to be wrong about anything. But then I'm also a human being with my own pride and ego. And like, there are concepts that I really just don't want to deal with because it's inconvenient. And it means like having to fall on my sword or say out loud to somebody that I'm wrong and I'm sorry. And having to course correct and shift my trajectory. And if we think about it in terms of like what I mentioned earlier, that whatever this experience is, if you want to see it as like a simulation or a hologram, like which the fair case is made for both. But if you want to see it in that way, think of the algorithm as existing to teach you humility and to teach you that power, true power comes from love and humility. And whatever the designer spirituality you're looking for, it is designed, literally designed to help bring you and lead you to a place of like true power being found in humility and love. So no matter what way you try to serve up your spirituality, it's going to serve you up. It's going to serve you up what you need in order to get there. And that I think is like the spirit. That's what we call spirit. And the wrestling
that's a really good, that's a cool way of putting it. I almost feel like everyone's gonna figure it out eventually. But it's like what it says in the Bible, the path to destruction is wide, the path to heaven is narrow. Maybe there's a narrowing process that happens, and it happens with everyone. And it could even continue after death, because it says in 1 Peter that they preach the gospel to the dead. So
I love that. I want to see myself in like in some other realm after I die, that I'm some like angelic force of seeking out the dead and teaching them the way, the truth, and the life, and or like working. I don't even know how that works, but when Houston talks about how some of us have jobs on the other side of this, like once we pass on from here, I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to be like an angel warrior hunter force, like a force of love for lost souls, for the lost energies.
I was really depressed when I heard that at first, when I learned that from him, that people had jobs, because I was like, when do we ever stop working then? Like, do we ever, like, where's the peace and relaxing
I mean,
time.
but I think that's part of why here it's set up the way that it is, because once you realize that you don't have to work in resistance, because that's the whole thing that I've realized is there's these energetic things that are happening all around us that we're not always keyed into, and there's this flow of things, and like all of nature kind of points us to what's actually going on. And then now we have quantum mechanics and physics and biology, and we can see that it's all happening all the time. And once we learn that the process is joyful and pleasurable, and there can be joy and peace even in the resistance and the wrestling, like when we meet resistance. I don't know, I've kind of started looking at it like a video game where it's like, okay, I'm on this level. I can freak out and panic and have a meltdown because all of these unexpected things are happening, or like these horrific things are happening in other places in the world. Or I can look around and say, what do I have here that I can work for this like net positive idea? What do I have here that I can work for good? And then the rest of it, I'm going to pray, which is an energetic exchange. Like that is people who talk about energy work or light work, it's just a form of prayer where you're putting out that energy and working in harmony with the forces of good all around you, with God, and allowing yourself to work with God rather than of your own power or on your own. And when I'm having fun with life now, like I'm actually enjoying this experience, and I'm not afraid to talk about things that, I have friends that won't talk to me right now. They were a little shocked that I interviewed somebody from the Telepathy Tapes. But I have friends that they won't talk to me because they don't know what to make of the things that I talk about. Because I'm like, I criticize evangelicalism and the Bible and like how it's been interpreted. And then I'm also like, but God but Jesus,
And
people,
Jesus, yes.
Yeah, people don't. And I'm also like, but religion doesn't really matter. Like, that's not really the point. That's kind of our making. But anyway, all that to say.
Yeah. I don't have any friends, babe. Like, you're actually my only friend. It's hard. I have friends, but we don't talk anymore. It's not like, and there's no beef or animosity. There's nothing but love. We just don't talk. It's just a fact. I grew up with 3 sisters, and I also have another sister on my father's side. So a lot of like women that were just naturally built into my life. And so they've been my best friends. My sisters have always been my best friends. So that's the aspect of it too. But yeah, especially since I moved here to Kentucky, I don't have any friends.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's crazy. But it's funny that everything you said is almost exactly what my son said to me about a Roblox game that he plays. And it's just one of these perfect points of, and again, not to isolate or alienate people who make the choice to be childless. Please, I'm not trying to do that, but just FYI, a really cool way to learn all these lessons and secrets of life is to have a child, because they'll teach it to you. It's incredible how I'm always learning because of Ambrose's experiences. And, I've been concerned about this Roblox game he plays because it's open loop. Mm-hmm. It's called an open loop game rather than a closed loop game. It's like there's just no end. You keep doing task and task and task, and after task, and you achieve like a certain skin, and then you achieve the next skin, and a little bit of it is chance, but there is like skill involved too. You just keep going to the next thing, keep going. And there's no end to the game. And it can be addictive. But like, I was like, doesn't it bother you? Don't you want to get to the end and like win and be the winner of the game? And he said, no, it's just fun. I just have a lot of fun when I play it. It's like, okay, yeah, like that's like, it really is about the journey, not the destination. Maybe, I guess, I don't know.
Yeah. It's interesting. In the last episode, you guys talked about how in the podcast of Heaven, you guys talked about how some of the non-speakers are told that they're not allowed to share certain information. And I think it's because it would ruin the fun for some of us who are in the process of learning. They have a reason, a privilege to be given certain information for whatever their individual experience is. But they're told, but hey, don't ruin the fun for the rest of the people. If
that
we
could be
really knew what was to come, we might not interface with this experience in the way that we're literally here for. We might not interface with it in a way that we learn what it is we're here to learn. And I don't know if this whole thing, you know, some people say Earth is a school for us to learn particular things that we signed up for. Houston's actually said some things that would confirm that that could be a possibility. I hear that a lot in different, for lack of a better word, new age communities. And there's a whole community of like past life regression people who say like we kind of recycle and come back over and over again for different experiences, which I can see there being elements of truth to that within like the scriptural biblical perspective. But I also, there's so many details to the story to really know exactly what's true. But I know that the whole reincarnation thing, like I've had encounters with what I would call like a higher angelic being that showed me a visual representation of the only thing I can think of that it represents is reincarnation and this idea of getting to homeostasis in each incarnation or in each avatar as a process of distillation of the soul so that we can become more purified. I would not tell people that that's like gospel. That was just kind of a spiritual experience that I had, which has caused me to look a lot more into it. And to research more and to have fun.
Yeah. That's another thing that bothered me when I first heard it. Like, it's funny. If I was in front of that buffet, like that person was talking about, I would not have picked the telepathy tapes and like this experience I'm going through with Katie in Houston. A lot of the stuff doesn't jive with like the things I've thought my whole life in here, you know? And the fact that there's these people who have the ability to see and speak with their angels, but then some of the stuff's private, like that bothers me. I'm like, what do you
mean? Tell me.
What's the point? What's the point then? Like, why are they there? What's the point if we're not supposed to find out? And it reminds me of like how I was as a teenager. I was really obsessed with choose your own adventure books. But the more I read them, I would start to, like, as soon as I got a new one, I'd go look at all the endings and then go back and choose after I knew all the different choices.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably the perfect metaphor for why we have like our memories erased when we're here. Like, why don't we know what's going on? Why is it impossible for any single human being to understand it? And I have so many theories about this because this is all I think about all day long.
This is all I think about. My therapist diagnosed me with existential OCD.
I love it. I probably have that too because this is all I don't know about you, but like when I'm around other people or hanging out with other people, like I don't want to talk about sports or the weather or like pop culture. Like nothing that is societal is remotely interesting to me. I want to be like, I don't know, like have you read about Kabbalah yet? Have you read about this? Like, and I've recently got together with another friend who we're kind of reconciling somebody that I had a falling out with a year ago. And it was great to get back together with him because he's one of these people that this is the only, like 2 hours wasn't enough to talk to him because it was going on and on about it. But there was one thing I wanted to shift into, but now it's completely slipping my mind. I'm almost too comfortable with you because when I'm like not interviewing people, but like having conversations with people, there's a level of like, I don't know, I'm like super alert and attuned. And I think because you're my friend, which you are 100% my friend. And like,
thank you.
yeah, I think I get a little bit more distracted because I'm like in friend mode.
Yeah. Well, it's also I'm like I like want to talk about all of it, you know?
I
So I'm like,
know.
what do I pick in my brain to talk about? But it's just it's you're right. It's what was I going to say? Oh, so the choose your own adventure thing, it made me think of something else. So we had an episode where we talked about why is the God of the Bible referred to as he, him? And I liked where we ended things. Like I liked the conclusion there. I mean, it's something you can talk about forever. And I kind of understand it. I still don't entirely understand it, but I know personally in my heart it's weird to say they. And I brought that up in the episode. I was like, why don't we just say they them if it's both? You know what I mean? Like if God has both masculine and feminine qualities, then why don't we say they them? And it's just like immediately the intuition I get is that it's lacking a oneness.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's too multiple.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. I found it so I find it so interesting the many different names in the Bible for God and how that kind of speaks more to the nature of who and what God is more than thinking in terms of male or female. And my favorite reference is with Moses, where the bush, God says, I am that I am. I just am. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay. So often I will avoid using, not completely, like sometimes it's appropriate to say father. And I do love thinking of the imagery of a father, a good father, how
Mm-hmm.
a good father loves his kids. But when I pray, when I am like talking directly to creator, it's great I am, creator.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I
think
find
about it. When
something
you use pronouns to when you speak to someone, you're not saying he or him or her or them or any like you're saying you. You
Mhm.
are you. And that's really what God is, you know?
Yeah. And one thing
Uh,
I'm sure of, I just lack a better way to articulate it, is that language in itself is such a derivative form of communication. You know, we have like Tower of Babel kind of puts it perfectly, but language itself, this is a very derivative form of communication, and it is all about energy and like the attitude of your heart, the desires of your heart, your emotions, and creator God knows our hearts and how we want to see God and be seen by God. And I know that whatever our limitations in language as human beings are, the true desires of our heart kind of transcends whatever
yeah,
our hangups
yeah.
on about language are.
Yeah. Like you said, you were saying how the angels tell them things that they can't share. And it's like, okay, that's like it's holding the magic and the mystery for us. It's more fun this way. It makes me think about growing up. My mother, she made Christmas so magical and so real that I was well into my teens still fully believing in Santa because she went above and beyond, like would do everything in a completely different handwriting, like had this incredibly perfect signature for the Santa that stayed consistent throughout the years. Always used like vintage, very antique looking Santa Christmas wrapping, did all the cookie stuff and left the note with that beautiful handwriting that was different than hers. And she'd come out in the morning and be so shocked at the presents. And she's like, I still don't get this every time. And as the oldest, I'd come out at like 3, 4 in the morning and she'd be there sitting looking at the presents, and I'd sit with her and look at them. And she's like, I still don't understand how this happens. And she just like, she kept it going.
Aw.
And I guess I kind of just think about the feminine aspect of God that way. The Holy Spirit, the mother part of God, is just like she doesn't really need the credit. She just wants the kids to experience the magic.
Have
You
you
know?
ever read the Aramaic translation of the Lord's Prayer? There's this like other translation that's a very like message version-y,
Oh.
but it's based on the original Aramaic because the Gospels are written in Greek and they were written 40 years after the fact. And it starts with, rather than our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. It starts with, O great birther of the cosmos. And I'm like,
yes,
yeah,
that's beautiful. Yeah. We don't have, and we all kind of agreed with this on that podcast episode too, is we don't give the feminine aspect of God enough credit. It's true. We don't. But to go completely the opposite direction and make it all mother would be incomplete as well.
Yeah.
That's why there's a Trinity.
That's kind of I wouldn't say a red flag, because I don't want anyone to feel judged for whatever their practice is. Like the conversations that I have here, we are sharing where we're at. We're sharing what our current experience is. But there's always a little bit of reticence when people go from one extreme to the other of like, okay, so the patriarchy is not the way. So let's go purely to matriarchal goddess worship, mother god. And like you said, that's just as much incomplete as the current picture. And we're not looking for imbalance. We're not looking for ideologies that serve whatever we want to believe. Like, I am in pursuit of truth and trying to get down to the bottom of truth.
And I'm not trying to be a pick-me girl or girly or like contrarian, although I do have those tendencies sometimes. I do kind of, it becomes a bit of a game in TikTok to just find the way to contradict the person and challenge. And I do have that tendency sometimes. But being a part of a family with a father, a son, and a mother, like that, maybe I wouldn't have even realized that without this experience. But like, that is what's whole. That's the whole picture, for me.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I love that. And I think that's why when families divide and break, like, my sad sob story is my parents divorced when I was 7, and it's just been a fractured family ever since. We've never really known completeness or wholeness. And there's like a lot of that I bring into how I approach relationships and like intimacy.
I come from divorce as well. So yeah, I get it.
We're meant for wholeness and completeness at the small level of like, and it's not small at all, but the level of family is where we first learn what completeness and wholeness means and what that looks like. And I love that that's what your experience
and
is.
This is just how I learned the lesson. Wholeness and completeness can be learned in so many different ways. And I know like people go to India and meditate for hours and then they figure that out. Like there's all these different ways. For me, this is just the way that it worked for me, is to figure that out, is to be in this perfect little triangle that I'm in right now, which was so different than how I was raised and so antithetical, to the point where I almost thought, like, because it was so different, I thought it wasn't right. And I came so close to splitting us up so many times. And I think, in society, the family is not honored. It's not respected. And I know I sound a little bit trad wife saying that, but it's true. I think there are so many different ways that they divide us, because division is controllable, it's profitable, and they divide the family too. I see it all the time. I see it with Ambrose's classmates. It's so heartbreaking. And I think, again, going back to kind of what we were first talking about with being comfortable with conflict, it's more than just online spaces and in the autistic community. We all need to learn how to be comfortable with conflict. And another hot take I'll throw down is, I'm actually not, I mean, to a certain extent, obviously, again, I'm doing a caveat. If there's abuse involved, that's a different story. But I'm not a fan of this whole no contact movement thing. I've come full circle on that. I sort of understood it for a while, but I think no contact has actually been a huge part of why things have just kept getting progressively worse after COVID.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And I think we could probably spend a whole hour talking about that. Like,
Yeah.
there is a strategic effort to divide generations and families. You know, why are we naming the different generations and like pigeonholing and stereotyping boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z? You know, why are we stereotyping and then like pitting ourselves against one another as if we're not all a part of this experience? And like there's little niches of like, oh, it's funny, haha, that like Gen X has some of these traits because of whatever their cultural experience was or whatever. You know, there's lighthearted ways to look at it. But I think of how the Bible talks about the adversary, and the adversary is seeking to divide us. And the adversary can be whatever thought that we have, that we think separates us from the people we are divinely connected to. It's a birthright to be in a whole incomplete family. I don't think people realize like that's a birthright. And that's something I've had to say to my father based on like his choices and how that affected our family. It was my birthright to have a mother and a father. And that was taken from me. And I don't think you will ever understand the impact that that has had on my life, my worldview, and the future, the kind of life that I can live, because I've had to spend the first third of my life reconciling with all of this division and brokenness. I was one of those people who went no contact for a while and blocked people, you know, different family members, because I'm like, their views are toxic. They're a narcissist. The internet's giving me all the facts of what a narcissist is, and they check every single box. So said I'm an expert and I'm well within my right to protect my peace. And it's all about me. And, you know, people are souls. They're not disposable. And sure, like what you said, the caveat of tolerating abuse is not okay. And there's nuance to it. But yeah, I'm completely where you're at, where I'm not a fan of no contact. I think if you can reconcile a relationship, maybe you have to agree to disagree and say like, let's limit our proximity to one another, because we don't seem to bring out peace in one another. We seem to trigger each other a lot, and that's not really life-giving in either one of our situations.
Yeah. But you can still, even if you choose to never speak to that person again, you can still put down the anger and what's happened. You know, like there's still forgiveness is for yourself too. You know what I mean? It's like for your own benefit.
Oh yeah. I just posted a thing on forgiveness on TikTok because I see it as like an energetic release. It's like it's more, I was journaling yesterday and writing down my thoughts about it too. That forgiveness or gratitude, they're more than just forgiveness and gratitude, these like concepts of positivity or whatever you want to see them as. It is literally an energetic release, and you're releasing poison from your body. You are agreeing not to be judged to that degree. You're releasing whatever that curse of like, I have to see this and hold them to this, but that's holding on to something, you know?
And it's kind of crazy how if you just take that extra step, that tiny little bit of effort to protect your peace, to not take on their negativity or trauma or drama or anything, but still maintain relations. Like, you'd be surprised how things can actually change and adapt and grow. I live with people that a lot of people would go no contact with for whatever reasons, like just not being on the same side ideologically, politically, and we learn so much from each other, because I'm like comfortable enough in my skin now at this point with my views and my experiences to just like respectfully chit chat back and forth here and there every now and then, not all the time, about politics and whatever. And like we kind of see where we're coming from on a lot of things, and it's where there's like class solidarity is slowly happening, at least on this small level in my family. And I think if more people did that, it would collectively grow as well.
Totally. Yeah. I think we have more in common than we think that we do. And we're trained to look at our differences. And a really important thing is just like hearing people out in the heart behind what they think why they think what they think, why they believe what they believe. But then also realizing just by the act of listening and like putting some of that hostility aside, you're refusing to be the enemy and to play the role that they are expecting you to play by just simply having a different perspective. And that breaks down walls and barriers and defenses. I think it was Tia that I talked to last week, and I'm going to have her on again in a couple days. But Tia Michelle was talking about forgiveness. And she was talking about how sometimes we need proximity between us and people, other people, especially if there's like abuse or harm happening, but that we should never put anyone out of our hearts. And we should never think of anyone as too far gone, because that's not for us to decide.
No. That's another thing that's another point that will heal generations and actually change, like that will bring about actionable positive change as we go into the future for future generations. We can't just continue to repeat the same traumas. And in order to do that, we do need to leave some room for redemption. You know,
Yes.
Cancel culture is a toxic thing in that it gives us the concept that you'll never be able to come back from this mistake. And I think for the most part, obviously there's some exceptions, but for the most part, redemption will heal everyone involved. Like, why does just the victim have to be the one who like comes out and speaks out about what happened? You know what I mean? Like, have you noticed that that's quite often, like, it's never the accuser, and I think, or it's never the actual abuser. And I think part of the reason is because being wrong is so feared and so hated and so repelled that we just don't leave any room for it.
Yeah. We're afraid to admit our faults out loud. We're afraid to say when we were wrong. And that's something that Katie and I talked about in our episode of like the church refuses to admit wrongdoing, where there's obviously wrongdoing and mistakes and failures. And I think that's just more of a larger cultural societal thing, because we don't like to leave room for being wrong. And it's like academic environments, most of us in our households and the way that we were raised, there wasn't a lot of room for like being wrong gracefully or like being wrong and then redirected. It was like, if you're wrong, there's a very harsh consequence.
Yeah,
and
there
so
was
it's
like traumatic punishments. Yeah.
It's like a very shame oriented relationship. Hey, I could literally talk to you for hours.
I know.
And there's, again, so many things that I'd like to get into. And I hope that I feel like a little bit jumbly today personally. I hope that this conversation resonates with people. I think anyone who's like us that just are into all of these different topics and nuanced spirituality and like Jesus, but not religion. Jesus and stones and energy and telepathy.
I'll throw in a quick little plug for an artist that I love so much, and it just kind of just reminds me of this, like where, you know, people are not ideologies and they don't fit in these boxes, right? So there's a musician named Semler. Do you know?
I have not listened to their music very often, but I know who they are, and I've known who they are for like a while.
Yeah, so I think they are a perfect kind of dichotomy of what we're talking about here. And I just, if anyone's listening and resonates with this idea of like of faith and Jesus, but you know, not the perfectly restrictive, oppressive religion, listen to Semler. I love their music.
I will link their music down below for anybody who wants to check it out.
I saw them in Nashville recently, and they're amazing live.
Awesome. I had a friend who I haven't talked to in a while. No, there's like no negative reason. We've just been busy. But she texted me and she's like, I saw you reposted a TikTok about Semler. I love them. Oh my goodness. And I'm like, okay, I should listen to this. So
yeah.
Before we part ways, my friends, is there anything you want to share about like what you have going on? Like, we got the podcast of heaven, but like any final parting words of wisdom or encouragement?
I would love for everyone to come check out my TikTok page. I know I'm like, I'm still just like a petty, main character energy a little bit about my TikTok. I would love more people to view it. And so follow me at Heidi-Rachel Brown, at Heidi-Rachel Brown. It's actually Rachel, but when I say Rachel, then it's people don't spell it right. It's Rachel, just like, yeah, Rachel. And I'm also at Heidi-Rachel Brown on Instagram. And then the podcast is the Podcast of Heaven. Katie's website is where you can find like that and also lots of other resources. And that is asher.house. That's her website. And wish us luck and pray for our next podcast taping, because we are going to be doing it in person down in Atlanta with a special guest.
I'm so excited.
There's a lot of like technology involved. So I'm just praying that, it's funny, like, how we had to stop and start with this podcast. I don't let any of that sway me anymore, because that has happened literally every time we've tried to tape. Like nothing has come out perfectly. Nothing has gone smoothly. And I just, that's just the enemy trying to mess things up here. And so I'm just praying that it all works out, because we have to have the multicams and the audio going. And so, but it's going to be really fun. And I think it'll be a good episode. So everybody just keep listening. We're on YouTube as well, the Podcast of Heaven.
I'm so excited. And I will link all of that for everybody. I hope that everyone enjoyed this chat. It was super fun.
I did.
I would love to have you on again, because there's some other like specific topics, little niche topics that like we could probably spend hours talking about.
Yes, let's do that. I would love that. And I'm sure Michael would love to join in too.
Heck yeah. Michael is hilarious. Oh my goodness. The comedic timing and like, what's the word? Like comedic relief that comes in the podcast. He's so great. I love that he's a part of it.
Yeah. I feel bad.
Really
I feel bad sometimes. I kind of rein him in a little too much. Like I actually am acknowledging that I think I rein him in a little too much, because I really want Katie to have her platform and have her say, and she has so much information to share. But like, I kind of realized today, I was like, no, actually we do need to sort of break it up. Like it's getting long. Like sometimes the information's a little long and you need to break it up with laughter and like questions and things like that. So he's really good at that.
Yeah. Well, the first episode I listened to, because he was a new presence, my brain was like struggling. I texted you because you're like, any feedback? And I'm like, well, if I'm just being like very candid, I'm like, your husband's a little out of pocket sometimes.
Yes.
But as the episodes go on, I'm like, no, it's like so perfect, because he kind of says the thing that most of us are thinking, or like he'll bring some like random conspiracy theory out that I'm like, I was thinking about that.
He wants us, yes. He wants us to do an episode on Nephilim so bad. And I'm just like, let's go baby steps, because Katie and her audience and her friends and family and the other caretakers of non-speakers that she works with and stuff, they're not exactly, I don't know for sure, but like they're not exactly the Nephilim crowd. Like they probably are open to it, but we gotta like tippy toe.
Yeah. I think there's so many of us that have just been like seeking for answers for so long, and there's so many things that don't add up and it doesn't make sense. And it's like, these people are a gateway to learning more. And I think that curiosity is like, it's special to bring that into the table. And I think Katie also does a really good job of like setting a boundary. Hey, that's not really what I'm able to speak to right now, but here's this. And
yeah, she's nice about it.
Yeah. But it is great, because he says what a lot of the time I'm kind of thinking in the back of my mind, but I'm like, I wouldn't ask that, because I am not sure whether or not that's an appropriate question. And he just goes for it. And I really appreciate it, because I think having that kind of voice of curiosity there and humor as like a comedic relief, it really brings a lot to the whole personality and presence of the podcast. So
yeah,
I would love to have Michael on and to do a chat with the two of you.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. Thank you so much. And I'm sure we'll chat soon.
Yeah, go get your cat.
Okay, I know he's probably so mad at me. All right. Bye.
Bye.